Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the, can't believe I'm saying this, Joe, an actual podcast. This is the first time we're a podcast from the beginning of the episode. So welcome to the Family EV podcast with Joe and with John. How you doing, my friend?
Doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Yeah, surviving. So yeah, you can now get us on most of the major platforms. We're still waiting on Apple to come through, but that should be within the next few days. I know I said that last time, but you can find us on Spotify, and I'll put a link to our Anchor page where there's links to all of the distribution platforms. That'll be in the show notes. And Joe's going to put a post up in the community section of his YouTube account as well with that. So it'll be there. So please subscribe. We are going to have some, I'm going to say unique content, but the way we do things is going to change ever so slightly. But we'll talk about that as we go. Here we are on a week of September the 20th or thereabouts. I got a couple of things to go through, but Joe, what's happening in your world? What's in the world of EVs and road trips and the like? What are you up to?
I'm in the process of still working on editing the Montana trip from about a month and a half ago, but working on planning a little weekend getaway to Omaha, Nebraska. So it's always, doesn't matter the length of the trip, it's always fun going on about a route planner and planning out the route and seeing what the necessary charging stops are, et cetera, et cetera.
I know. Well, we actually stayed in Omaha, Nebraska on our first night after leaving Chicago. We didn't leave until late in the afternoon. I think this is my next episode to go up. We did stay at the Motel 6 in central Omaha. It was as bad as Motel 6s get. It wasn't a fantastic one, but there wasn't a charger in the car park. We ran up to 90% while eating. Actually, we got takeaway food in Omaha, and then we ate it while charging at the Walmart at Council Bluffs, if I remember correctly.
I've been there. I like the Applebee's in that parking lot.
He's got everything
good in someone else's neighborhood.
There's a Cracker Barrel as well. What more could you hope for? That's good. I look forward to it. He's madly addictive. I'll tell you about my November trip later on. But yeah, there is something fun about planning these things. Oh, we could, or you could, and yeah, it's fun working out those elements. I'll come back to that in a minute. But yeah, is it just a family trip or anything interesting?
Just going to visit some friends. So yeah, as you were saying, you always want to plan the trips that are possible. And then when the route planner says it's not possible, then you know it has to be possible. You just have to look deeper into where is their outlets.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've not been doing any trips. Not that there isn't news, but my next adventure, I'm going to be out east in October, which is non-EV related, and then I will be in November. We'll talk before then, but I did have to go into a better route planner just to check my math. So my alter ego, British John, a stand-up comic, will be supporting Kabir Kabezi Singh from America's Got Talent. So I'm going to feature for him at Ha Ha's Club in Los Angeles, in Burbank, Los Angeles, in second week in November. I think it's the 13th. And then on the 14th, and then we're going to drive down to San Diego Sunday morning and do 2 shows there. So that'll be fun. And then we're going to cannonball back. And so this is the logic of going to LA on just one charge. This will be because I don't think I'm going to have a Lucid. I think we're going to be doing it in the Blue Beetle, my friend. I think we're going to be doing it in the Blue Beetle. The only other thing that's personal that's been going on, and if anyone cares, I've actually been, because I'm not doing many miles right now. It's just, work. So since we last spoke, I've been renting the Blue Beetle out. on Turo, Turo. If you're not familiar with it, it's the Airbnb of vehicles. And I don't mind telling you, Joe, I've rented the vehicle. One person took it for an extended test drive because they were thinking about buying one. They drove a total of 53 miles. They literally drove to their office in Fremont and then came back the next day. That was all they did. And then over the weekend, it was rented out to take part in a commercial for a sustainable operation. I know it sounds weird. It's a vineyard and a load of other stuff up in Napa. Anyway, their producer got in touch, and yeah, the car made damn good money this past week. So it's going out again tomorrow with an Apple Analytics engineer. So I don't mind telling you, Joe, the car will have been rented out for a total of six days, and it's more than made its payment.
Very nice. We've had experience on Turo before with a Camaro, but I've noticed that electric cars sure actually can drive a pretty high price. Doesn't matter what brand it is.
I'm not always going to say that's a good thing, because I did look at renting an electric car while I was out east for a week. I'm flying in and out of New Jersey on the 4th and out on the 11th. I could not find anything that was comparable in cost to a full-size vehicle from Avis. My Avis cost, including all taxes and everything else, is just under $500. So just over $400. But I could not get anything electric for less than $805. Well, it's been an interesting week for all things EV. Now we're at the tail end of the Frankfurt Motor Show that was in Munich, and you always get the tail enders and things like that. I thought I'd put together a list and we can talk about what seems interesting to you, if that's all right, my friend.
Sounds pretty good.
And for those of you who listen to this on the podcast, I think this is going to be the shape of things. We'll go through what we've been going through, what we're planning and stuff like that, and then we'll just get into a little bit of hearsay and conjecture, a bit of discussion. If nothing else, if I dial up the accent, it'll sound like BBC Radio 4. You know, it's the kind of the podcast to go to sleep to. So I've taken my anger medication, so I should not get too unhappy about this, but let's talk about Volkswagen first. Our good friend of the podcast, Brendan Flash, did a review of the ID4 all-wheel drive. He was out in Chattanooga. Very enjoyable to watch. And he did share some information that came from the presentation beforehand. And, you know, apparently the good news is Volkswagen are listening. They're not doing anything, but they're listening, Joe. They're listening. Does the sound system in my car work properly? No, it doesn't, Joe. I mean, there's nothing to listen to. It's very quiet. That's what I'm listening to. I'm listening to Kara Swisher on the Pivot podcast going, today's show, we have Scott Galloway. And then I have to press the button, the voice control button, and say, please increase volume, at which point it says, I don't know what you're talking about, but I can then get the audio controls back. But they're listening, Joe. They're listening. So if you're not aware of this, dear listener, I have worked in security software for my entire life. And the company I work for was recently awarded the highest accolade you can get by the Gartner organization. And one of the things is because we moved over 2 years, we moved our entire software stack to a cloud solution. So all our customers get all their updates via the cloud. Now, this is crazy, Joe, because this is starting to sound like what a car company would do, pushing out updates, go
I think
to
I've heard of one company that does that.
Yeah. However, the European ID4s and ID3s had their first major update pushed to them nearly a month ago, if not a month ago. I know we talked about it. I know that ID4 Can on YouTube showed us what they've done and the major changes to the interface and how much more responsive it is. Brandon published a list of all the things they're going to do for us. Volkswagen, this is a very special word. It's called iterative. I'll give you the English version. It's called incremental. Instead of trying to do one big thing with lots of things in it, do smaller things and do more of them. It's not frustrating. What's frustrating is waiting for the big thing, which is no doubt going to have its issues, because it doesn't matter how much testing you do, you've still got these sticky, unknowledgeable, unpredictable things in the process called human beings. I love my customers, Joe. They're absolutely fantastic. But not one of them has ever responded well to a big change they didn't know about until it was delivered.
Right. I'm much more of a fan of the Tesla model, where it's, here's this update this week that fixed this one little problem. 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, another update. Here's this game that you now have, and you always feel like your car is getting better. Rather than here, we've been promised an update since June, maybe something like that. And
we were told in the summer. And then what annoys me is that Dustin Krause says publicly, we wanted to get the ID4 out there and then the all-wheel drive. I'm sorry, is it wrong to hope that the software and the hardware packages might be in tandem? They should be. I know this is a cultural change for Volkswagen, but unfortunately they're playing catch up with the rest of the world.
I mean, I guess we have to give Volkswagen credit, because they did say the update would happen in the summer, and fall doesn't start until tomorrow. So there's still hope.
I swear to God, if you're using the Starbucks red cups as a calendar guide, I will drive to Chicago and strangle you with a Starbucks apron.
Oh, if that's the case, then pumpkin spice season started about a month ago, so Volkswagen's late then.
My God, I knew you were just a scrawny white bitch, really. It's not racist. It's iterative. Anyway, I'm not ignoring his pedigree or his heritage. Pedigree, I don't know how I bred him. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, you know what? Listen all you want, but friggin' actions count far better than words. And I'll say that and say no more about it.
I just can't help but think, are they thinking of, well, here's the updates that people want. Which of these can we monetize and get the store up running to?
I read that, and
turn
I'm
this
like,
car into a $50,000 car really quickly.
and I'm not sure they've got that kind of you're talking about something we call granularity. I'm not sure that this car is the platform to do this, because they got this out relatively quickly. Go remember, we're driving a European car, and the reason I say that is their real push was to sell this in Europe to retire those fines they were going to have to pay for not having enough EVs on the road. Right. Remember they had ID3s and ID4s stacked out of the wazoo waiting for software so they could put them through the showrooms and retire those rather negative amounts. But I think we are living with what you might call the minimum viable software stack. I don't know if travel assist can be monetized to be made better with the amount of edge computing that's in it currently. I'm not sure what features, would I pay for it to be faster? I know somebody would. I know somebody would. And if you have that amount of control over the hardware, then great. You know, and Tesla did this. Tesla said you want it to go 1 second faster, 0 to 60 on the performance model, then you could pay, I think it was $1,200. And that's fine. You know, we know they've uncorked the ID3 battery. The ID3 battery gained 2 kilowatts during the most recent software update. Would I pay to get an extra, there's 5 kilowatts of buffer. So let's split the difference and call it 2.5. What's that? 2.5, 77. Would I pay more money for a 3% extra, 3% more battery?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
It's not, you know, we're not talking, you know, when Tesla had the uncorked, the 60s versus the 75s, that was a sizable amount of battery. But
right.
this isn't. We'll have to see. You know, I hope they, you know what, they've got some intelligent people, they've got some creative people. We'll see what they're going to do.
Charging, is probably the one that I could, if they would uncork it to go from 125 to 175, that would be a tempting. It
would be tempting, but
I have to see the curve.
So I picked the car up last night, the car that was, was shooting for the commercial, because they were going to get back after 9 o'clock at night, and I just couldn't be out. They left one of their production cars here, so I drove down to Alum Rock to meet them because, you know, they were paying for me. They paid my recharge fee. Well, the truth of the matter is, if the battery comes in at zero, I'm just driving it down to Electrify America and plugging it in for 20 odd minutes just to put the heavy charge in it, and then, you know, it doesn't come off my electric bill. As it had been warm here most of the day, I was quite happy to. I was happy to have an excuse to get out of the house. I mention this because the chap had pulled into a DC fast charger at ballpark 5% state of charge, and he was blown away by how quickly it charged. A similar situation to myself. He was copying the footage from their I'm going to call, you know, their GoPros or whatever, far, you know, but those were 4K, much fancier than my equipment. He couldn't even copy 200. He said it was 200 gigabytes of data. He couldn't copy it from the memory cards to his other devices in the time it took to go to 40%. Now, you and I know this is true, and I know this is true in real life, because when I had my little problem at Eagle River, Utah, the only reason I was plugged in there longer than I planned to, it is Eagle River, right? Eagle Creek.
You mean West Wendover?
Green River. Green River.
Oh, Green River, yeah.
Green River. I'm calling it Eagle because there's a picture of an eagle next to the charger.
At the coffee shop, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd filled up the memory cards by mistake, and so I left as soon as I'd emptied the memory cards, not as soon as I needed to. So yeah, it's a good problem. Now, we've seen this with other vehicles. You know, Polestar changed their charging curve. They increased the maximum charge to 150, I think, up from 120. However, it only lasts for a few minutes. And Bjorn has done side-by-sides, and you're talking a minute's charging time over a 40-minute charge. It's just that the delta's not there. And we know it's going to affect the chemistry of the pack. You know, if you do bang in 175, that's more heat it has to deal with. You know, that's going to have an effect on the battery. So I don't know. We'll see. And I have no doubt, if Joe's not got much to say, because he's the quiet one, I'll have plenty. I'll have plenty. What else are we going to talk about? I mean, let's, you know, as we're talking about OTA updates, that brings us to Tesla. And this week, Elon's promised this is the week when they're going to plug in, turn on 10.1 and allow public, give a button for the public to enter into the opt into the beta program.
I'd like to sit in a legal meeting at Tesla of how this got pushed through that, yep, anyone can have beta. Yeah. Sign your life on this dotted line here. Press accept.
Yeah, it is. And they spoke about this on a number of podcasts I listened to. Tom Maloney, I always get Tom's name, from the State of Charge channel, actually took a ride in a full self-driving Model Y this week. And he commented that his experience, and this was in Southern California, what I would call a Tesla-friendly environment, was not what he had seen performed by other YouTube channels. There may be an issue of objectivity.
Well, I know for a fact when Tesla was choosing who got the original beta, there was very strict stipulations that if they're posting videos on YouTube, they needed to say nice things. They couldn't show the car giving up on a turn, or Tesla didn't want that out there. And I think that's bad, because now you're going to have all these people that aren't wise enough, that watch the YouTube videos, think the car does a great job, press the button on their car and go for a drive, and they're going to not know how to handle it when the car didn't make a turn properly.
If you're wondering what the face is for, Joe, that's the face I make when I'm wondering whether it's worth making my next remark or not. How many subscribers can we lose if I'm to say, if you're one of these people that believes that full self-driving is safe for you and your family, you may or may not be one of those people that also don't wear a mask.
And I'd like to remind people my YouTube channel is Kyle Connor Out of Spec.
This was in my This is part of my stand-up deck, Joe. So I'm on the record as saying I don't believe in bullying. Everybody's got a right to choice. To get the vaccine or not, to mask or not to mask. That's absolutely fine. I'm not going to bully or lecture people. I am not going to say things like, Darwinian theory. I'm not going to say things like thin the herd. Not going to do it, Joe. I'm going to refer to a mice and men strategy. I'm going to do that because I don't think many of them have ever read a bloody book. It's a 2.5-hour film, and the bad bit doesn't happen till the end, Joe. It doesn't happen till the end. If you don't know what that means, put it in the comments, and I'll refer you to a Wikipedia page. It's not a rabbit, Joe. It's not a rabbit. Sorry, I know. I need help. Let's see what happens. And unfortunately, legislation is going to be required at some point. The NTSB legislation, they have to step in. Who is in control of these vehicles? And unfortunately, by the time it's being tested in court, usually somebody's already dead.
That's usually how it gets escalated. Yep.
Absolutely. Speaking of escalated, two things related. GM had a good bad week, I think is what to say. They put the Lyric on the market, sold out in 10 minutes. And earlier on today, I had to run an errand, and I drove past a GM dealership in the Bay Area, and they have got all of these bolts that have been taken off the road, and they are literally stacked in the back lot right now, not for sale. This recall, this is serious, and this is, let me be clear, we're not beating up on Chevy Bolts, bloody ugly car, but and by the way, I was going to buy one, seriously, at $24,000 before I thought the ID4 would happen, and all these other things.
Can we say who's the designer that decided this is the way people want an electric car to look? Why is it not a Traverse or
No, well,
Trax
hold
or-
on. So my understanding, and by the way, I'm sure if I'm wrong, comments, people, comments. The Bolt was actually based on a design from now I call it Daewoo.
Oh, Daewoo. Yeah.
Daewoo, okay.
Yep.
Came from a design by Daewoo. And if you think that, yeah, then that actually makes sense. It looks more like a Daewoo than a GM.
Yeah, it's a very Japanese design for sure.
Yeah. Korean, Asian.
Yeah.
Flavored.
They all like to make their EVs very eye-catching.
But it is what it is. Now, and I think, by the way, the value of it is fantastic, and it gets more electric cars on the road. Fantastic.
For sure, it is a very good price point, especially when it was for sale. There was a lot of cash on the hood.
Yeah, you could walk away $24,000 with a brand new one not that long ago. If probably still can.
Yeah,
but yeah, they've had problems with batteries, and we won't dwell into it. We're not legal experts, so we're going to stay away from it. But you have to wonder, they're talking about remanufacture, they're going to pull all these battery packs apart, identify the bad ones, rebuild. There's lots of things we don't know about the GM EV strategy overall, but you have to assume there is a strategy at some point to take the Ultium battery technology, which they've designed and then have local manufacturing partners like they do. I think there's 3 plants going to be in North America in short order. This is the same, Tesla designed the pack, the batteries, but they work with Panasonic to manufacture them in Nevada.
Yeah.
You have to assume that there is a transition strategy to that Ultium technology, and clearly they're not going to take care of the old cars, but you have to assume that there's a strategy, because I think as we're talking today, they've actually just gone back to manufacturing the Bolt and the Bolt EUV.
It's kind of a head scratcher for me, because they had problems with the old original Bolts before they ever completed the redesign of the new Bolts. You thought that, I would have thought that's a great opportunity to redo the battery pack at that point, just to prevent the same problem from occurring. Instead, they just seem to basically redesign the exterior, but still the same electric motor, same battery, same charging speed, which is a pretty slow charging speed compared to most EVs out there.
Yeah, they moved it to, they take it to the full, I think it's 200 amps capable. So yeah,
but there is good news. If you like General Motors, there's another EV coming on the way.
Well, yeah, so the Lyric came out and they sold out in 10 minutes.
It's pretty impressive.
It is. And I think it demonstrates there really is a market for these things. It's not incentive led, it's people want the damn things.
If you design a beautiful electric car, people will put money down on the table.
Absolutely. Let's whiz back over to Europe for a second. I don't want to dwell on it for too much, but I was just impressed that Mercedes launched 5 new models this past week. And yes, there is an electric G-Wagon.
I did see that.
See, I just want to, I'm not a good person. I know the G-Wagon is beautiful. And if you are a rapper, and you do need to carry your bitches with you, it's probably the tool of choice. Mainly because, as I understand it, the tax deductions for having a vehicle that is more than 6,000 pounds in weight, which is pretty much anything I sit in qualifies immediately. And by the way, I don't want anyone to think that I'm some machismo bastard. I'm not. Equally, female rappers may carry their bastards. I don't speak the parlance. They're eunuchs. I don't know. Whatever derogative term of endearment is, you can take those in the back. But I just want to wire people up to the battery pack and put them in a puddle. That's all I want to do. I see that and I think it is a tremendous waste. But then that's just my inner European. I see the electric Hummer and think, why? I just don't.
I mean, I know why Hummer's doing it. Just the question is it enough of a flagship vehicle that you're going to sell a bunch of Bolts because people see the Hummer? I don't think it's going to have that same effect. Whereas, like, if you see a F-150 Raptor, that'll bring you into the dealership to buy a regular F-150. You know, like the flagship vehicle works when it's in the same genre, but the Hummer and Bolt are two completely different worlds.
The difference is I think, you know, that a Lightning Raptor, that is a Halo vehicle. It'll probably look like something that comes from Halo.
Yeah.
You know, the Master Chief could rock up in that, and that's fine. I think a Lightning Bronco. I quite like the idea of a Lightning Bronco.
I do too.
But the Hummer just looks like, first of all, let's be clear, I am in my mid-40s and I am white, but it really does look like something Drake would drive. And I don't know what a Drake is, but I'm told it's not just a duck.
I think I remember on the Inside EVs podcast, they said there'll be a lot of them in Miami. That's all they said.
Absolutely, and no doubt a good number of them in Los Angeles, and there will be a couple here. See, in the UK, we call them trendy wankers.
We call them mall crawlers here.
Absolutely. But no, it's, you know what, if this helps them amortize the investments that are required, you know, Tesla made the Roadster that was really small and really expensive, then the Model S, all of this created the investment program to deliver ultimately something that worked for the masses. So if that's the strategy, then you know, soak the rich. Absolutely fine with that. Speaking of soaking the rich, your Lucid's not going to arrive anytime soon, from what I can tell.
Oh, what a debacle this has been. You know, what's mind-boggling is, so I went to a dealer about a month ago and they told me I'll be able to get into a car and to do a video with it in 3 weeks. I went to that same dealer, you know, 1 month later, like last week, and they said, yeah, around December I should be able,
not a dealership.
Studio, correct. Delivery center, whatever, yeah. And they said, yeah, we should pretty much have a car by December for you. Like, how did that timeline get so far out of whack that 3 weeks ago they thought, for sure, we got this lined up?
Well, it's usually hardware or software. I'm changing my light. That's right. Those of you watching this and not listening to it, it's dark here in California as we're recording this, and well, that's not good. Well, it's getting close to Halloween, so I'm going to do my part.
The ghost of Brit John.
Indeed. Yeah, well, you know, I've seen the prototypes whizzing around the Bay Area. I had hoped, and I did have a conversation with them, that I could get my hands on one for the trip to Los Angeles and San Diego, because I thought, well, what better press can I give you than doing a relatively high speed but long distance road trip from the Bay Area to Los Angeles and then to San Diego of a weekend with a semi-finalist for America's Got Talent. I mean, I really can't give you a better opportunity than that, but it didn't happen. There's a currently, but Lucid, if you can get one, fantastic. Would love to take one. It's the weekend of November the 13th. I'm here in San Jose. I can pick it up. But I have to, and we'd have it back to you on Monday with 1,000 miles or so on the clock. And we got the charging strategy already fixed for this, my friend. So
I don't want to dwell and pick on Lucid too much, because Rivian and it sounds like Lordstown, I mean, all these new startup companies are facing, it seems
Rivian
like, similar challenges.
Hold on, my friend. Rivian are delivering this week, apparently, as we speak.
That is right. I did see that. But they have been, they
Yes.
were supposed to have been delivered in about, I think it was April or June,
Yeah.
something like
Well,
that.
you know, we did have a little pandemic and a little supply side issue. So, you know, it's not
Yep.
like building these things out of Lego. I'll give them that.
Before you know it, we'll be back to crank windows, so there's no more chips.
Well, let's talk about Windows, because Mustang had a crappy week. So first of all, Mustang had a bad week because they've had to recall 5,000 vehicles for a loose windscreen. And the thing is, and I'm pretty sure I'm remembering this correctly, but didn't Ford have a pop at Tesla for loose windscreens? I'm just going to say, if you're going to make a mobile greenhouse, don't talk about friggin' bricks. I think there's a lesson in humility, and God help you if it's me that's giving the lesson on humility. You know you're in trouble when I'm doing that one. Hubris is very expensive, very, very expensive. But they did have one of the chief engineer designer chappies on the Inside EV podcast this week from Ford, and he was talking about. I learned so much from that guy. I didn't realize they're pushing out so many updates just to take control of individual control elements. I found just the engineering side of that. I was really impressed. I listened. I learned a lot. It was a long podcast. I listened to it over a good number of trips, but that was really interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of brands that have walked the walk of saying, oh, we're going to make all of our cars electric by 2030, but hearing him speak really made it seem like Ford genuinely does have a plan in the next couple of years to have a lot of electric cars on the road. I know we mentioned in the last podcast the rebranding of the ID Buzz for their small van. Obviously, the e-Transit's out in a couple months here. The Lightning, the Mach-E. It seems like they're going to be a competitor.
And they got an Emmy working with Volkswagen in the European market. No, it was interesting. Well, anything else immediately come to your mind, my friend?
I think we're pretty good.
Well, in that case, this has been the first sort of sanctioned podcast of the Family EV podcast. We are going to do our best to make this as weekly as we can. Our travel schedules don't always permit, but please do subscribe. Now, we've got a couple of different ways for you to subscribe, and we encourage you to subscribe in as many ways as possible. So, to begin with, do subscribe to, well, actually, before we close out, you're going to be publishing your Montana trip at some point soon, I guess.
Some point soon.
I will be publishing both the trip, we're getting to the last parts of my cross-country trip. There will also be another episode. It'll be a longer one because I can't be bothered editing this into 3 different things. Video with Kabir Kabizi Singh. I also put up a mini review of our Pacifica, part of our house fleet and has been for a couple of years now, plug-in hybrid. And so all that's going on, and then there will be another vehicle that I'm spending some time with. I'll let you know about that closer to the time. I had hoped to have the ID4 all-wheel drive, but didn't happen. But I'm just going through my list here. But please, so Family EV Podcast does have its own YouTube channel, and you will see a link in the description. Please click on it. I mean, you're listening to this, but also go to search in Spotify and for Family EV podcast, and you should find it in there. Hopefully we'll be on Apple shortly, but please, if you have not subscribed to either Joe's channel, JKEV, again, link in the description, or mine, Regular EV Dad, please do so. I'm running a giveaway right now for the Volkswagen ID4 storage bins, signed by the Volkswagen long distance driver. I'll put a link to that video in right here. And yes, we're not sponsored by Home Depot pencils yet, but any day now. I just confiscated this off the child before the podcast, and it's been great for pointing at absolutely nothing.
Arthur Blank, if you're watching.
But yeah, we're giving those away, so please subscribe to the channel, and I'll put a link in there. And other than that, Joe, we should do this next week, and then it's kind of like a almost weekly podcast.
The podcast is not a podcast that became a podcast that it almost might become a weekly podcast.
Absolutely. And we got some interesting things going. I wanted to say that a number of people have been in touch to offer up content and sponsorships. Who would have thought, Joe? Who would have thought? Who would want to sponsor this shit show? But apparently, you and I speak a language other people want to be part of. So we'll see what happens with that. But other than that, I will say, if you have been, thank you for listening and not just watching. And we might not see you, but we'll listen to you. We are listening, just like Volkswagen. See you soon.
Take care.